Hi, I'm Alex, and you're here because you've created a direct lake model and now you want to share it with your users using item level permissions. Now, you've received an error that says fix some fields. Now, that's because we're missing permissions necessary on the warehouse or the lakehouse. So, I'm going to go through both options and clarify what's required in order to use those item level permissions so that all of the users can focus on the OneLake catalog rather than having workspace access and viewing items that they don't need. So let's get into it. Okay, so here we are in the workspace where I've created a demo lakehouse and a demo warehouse. I've also created semantic models that point to each source. So I've got a lakehouse model and a warehouse model, and then I've got reports on top of those. And I want to give my report viewers access to the reports alone, so item level permission. And I do that by clicking the three dots in the warehouse and going to manage permissions. Now, what I would recommend is that you use security groups for this, as it's scalable. But right now, for this example, I'm just going to add the user directly. So let's add my service account there. And I'll go back to the workspace and go to the lakehouse report and do the same. So direct access, add user. I don't want to send them any emails. And there we go. Okay, so now the user has visibility to the reports. Here we are in the user's OneLake catalog, where they can view all of the reports they have access to, any items. It's all in one pane of glass, so a really good user experience, and we should all be getting on board with this. So we've got the warehouse report. When we want to view this, we'll click open, and we'll receive an error that says something's wrong with one or more fields. Now that's because we haven't got access to the underlying data. Giving access to the report does give access to the semantic model, but then we need to give access to the warehouse or the lakehouse. So back to my account, and let's go back to the workspace and check the warehouse permissions, as that's going to be the primary one that people are using, as most gold layers are using the warehouse. So let's go to the three dots and manage permissions. Here we can add our user and type in your user's name or your security group, type it in correctly, and what we need are read and read all permissions. So read is by default, and we don't want to notify there, and we need to tick this box here that says read all and subscribe to OneLake events, but we can remove the OneLake events as it's not required. So we'll add that and click the three dots and remove subscribe. Now you'll see here that it says the changes may take up to 2 hours to take effect. So it is recommended that you do this before you even tell the users that the reports are available. And I'll show you the message that I received here in the add user. It says to define granular object level security for specific objects in the warehouse, use grant and deny statements in T-SQL. Now that's all well and good if you're using a direct lake model on SQL, but I'm using direct lake on OneLake. Now the differences that I've found with that, with SQL, you have to commit to your tables once you create. So there's no editing, there's no adding tables once you've created the model. With OneLake, you can add those tables. And I work in a bit more of a fluid way where I'm building tables as I go. So OneLake's my preferred method, so those T-SQL permissions aren't going to work. So until we have OneLake security for warehouse, what I'd recommend is if you have sensitive data that you isolated in its own warehouse, because you're going to have to give read all permissions here. And in the outlier case, if someone has access to a Fabric capacity workspace, they could create a shortcut to sensitive data if you give them read all permissions. So one to bear in mind, isolate your data. So we've given read and read all, so that should fix our issue in about 2 hours. So we'll do the same for, well, we'll come over to the lakehouse and we'll show you the permissions required there. So in the lakehouse, we can open there and we need to create OneLake security here. So this is the data that I've built the models around, this movie data set. So now I want to manage OneLake security, and I can get rid of default reader, and I can create my new role, which is going to be movie viewer. Okay, movie viewer. Right, so we'll grant there, we don't want read write, we just want read, and my head is always in the way. There we go. Next, and we want to give access to selected data. Let's just do this, edit, and then we want the movie schema. So add data there and go to next. And then I can add my user or security group there. Right, create that role. And it's as easy as that for a lakehouse. OneLake security is great. So let's take a look at the reports, which I might have to wait 2 hours for. So let me shift over here and check those reports. Now, OneLake security being as good as it is, it's instant. So I've got full access to that lakehouse report. All of the errors have been resolved. Now I'll have to pause this and come back once the warehouse report is active. So we got there in the end, and it looks like we got there in about 20 minutes. Now I'm not sure if that's exact, but yeah. So I checked again in 20 minutes and we're fine. So that's the permissions that you need for the lakehouse. Manage your OneLake security, and it's pretty much instant. And the warehouse, you need read and read all. Isolate your sensitive data in a separate warehouse. So I hope that's been beneficial, and I'll see you in the next.